Hi guys, this is Sufyan from SDA Designs. We are so glad to share with all of you one of our recently completed projects. You will see the still images in our other posts as well. In the meanwhile, we thought of giving you and explaining an ideology behind completing this office. Let's have a look on what are the 5 important points that one should focus at when he is looking forward to design his space. Number 1. Whether it may be a commercial space, whether it may be a residential space, whether it may be a hospitality space, or any other kind of genre that we are working on, the number 1 rule of designing a space, where one of the most important aspects that first needs to get attacked and focused at, is the zoning of the space. Once you are through with the zoning of the space, in terms of identifying the right locations for every function that has to be incorporated into the space, we then move on and understand as to these zones are going to get converted into what kind of spaces. When I say what kind of spaces, I mean to hint over here at the final locations and final aspects and corners as to these functions taking their positions. Once these functions take their positions, the third most important point that a person or a designer along with his client needs to focus on the accessibility path of the project. When I say accessibility path, I mean to say that every zone that has finally captured its positions with the final conclusion of the client being happy of that function being in that particular space, you need to assess before you finalize once the movement path of the space. Every space has a different form, has a different function, and based on those functionality is where you kind of incorporate your form. Some of the spaces that demand to have linear positions of functions, maybe some of the projects demand a staggered effect, or maybe so on and so forth. So once you assess finally your movement path and your accessibilities are in the final position as per design and requirement, where we say the functionality follows the form, then is the time where you kind of start developing the conceptual design. Once the conceptual designs are in position is the time where you then start focusing on the details, and details can actually not be listed. There are so many details that one needs to focus when we talk about interior design. Moving on further, let me give you a classic example of what we did with this particular office when it comes to zoning. Basically, this is the outer periphery of the space that we had received from the client. We got the space down to a complete bare shell, identified the functions and the forms and the requirements of the client. To begin with, the first very thing that our design studio did was we formed 4 parallel running grids, which goes in this manner. As soon as we identified the vertical grids that are running in the project, we then created a horizontal platform that kind of breaks the space into 2 equal segments, more or less equal. Moving on further, we then created the center point for this office, which was the reception, obviously one of the most important aspects for this office as a function and a form. We then placed the conference out here, and then by staggering the last corner of the space, which follows this manner of staggerism, and then creating this as the pantry. Over here, moving forward, there was a challenge where the column was coming right in the center 1, and this was one of the columns that was coming right in the center 2. Now our ideology was obviously not to showcase the column in the common areas and kind of consider and conceal them within the areas of functionality. This area, we had to create a parallel line over here, which kind of hides the column either on this side or either on this side. However, we chose to keep the parallel line running here, and we created this zone as a storeroom where the common access is not available for every person coming in. It's restricted to the person who's using it. Further on, to explain, this got converted as our MD cabin. This got converted as our tech room. This space that you see right here. This space that you see right here got converted as an MD cabin. Here we had the prayer room, which was one of the important functions. That was a demand from the client. Further on, this block in the corner, right in the natural shape and form of the available space, got converted into the toilet area. The washrooms were decided to be here. Again, this column out here is flushed in such a way that these common areas do not have a sense of this column being portrayed out here. This column offset showcases in the area within it. Now this area was created as a secondary room which was meant to have some kind of privacy to it. Finally, coming to our main zone, where we created this corner as again with the full privacy for their accounts. This area then got converted to the sales area, and further on we had a potential space of incorporating 2 more tables out here. So this is how our flow of movement follows, where this is the entire walkway that we get after entering from the reception, with the prayer room being here, the conference being in the common areas, so that when a person walks into the office, he can directly come for the meeting and attend the agenda that he's here for, and can kind of move out in a very simple manner. As mentioned earlier, we depicted every corners for the areas that were not too commonly used with the guests coming into the office. For example, this corner was dedicated for the pantry. This corner was dedicated for the toilet and washroom blocks. The sales area had one important criteria, where it had to be seen through the MD cabin 1 and the executive cabin 2. Hence we placed this cabin in this corner here, as well as this one right here, so that this person sitting out here has a complete visibility of his salespeople working, as well as this cabin here had a complete visibility and sense of the people working exactly over here. What we did in terms of the decor after we finalized our zones and our complete final placements is that we decided this area to have a complete solid look through and through. We played with the veneer paneling out here in this manner. Ideology behind it was very simple, that the office required not giving a vision to the salespeople of the people coming into the office every single time. They did not believe in disturbing the output and divert their focus towards seeing people attending at the reception or walking in at the reception. Hence here, once you see our video, you will realize that we've done a complete veneer paneling with complete flush doors, and once it is kind of closed, you cannot have a visibility as to where the door location is exactly placed. That's how we've covered and played in design. Once you enter this area, entire area is open right for the bang on purposes. For example, the executive director 2 with the sales floor and the accounts team. Further on, their office had a requirement of an IT room, which relates to the trade that we have focused out here in this office, which again needed its own privacy and did not have a major connection with these guys out here. Hence we placed them in a completely different corner. Thank you so very much for removing time and watching what we did with this office. I hope you enjoyed as much as we did in making it, and we look forward to see you more often on our page and also elsewhere. Take care and good wishes.